Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews out on the farm, which is fantastic. Now today I'm with Mike. Hello Mike.
Hello.
From Jubilee Farm, and we're in your field.
We are.
And there's lots of volunteers from the local area planting trees. Well, they're bunging in stakes and they're digging holes and they're planting trees. We'll find out what that's all about in a minute. But one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, Mike, is you've got an interesting story in as much as your farm came up rather rapidly, and tell us about what happened.
So for us, my background is actually in garden design and building gardens. So I've been in horticulture for many years. But 3 years ago, I listened to a podcast about somebody sharing his own story about eating organic and how that started to really heal his body. And that captivated me, and that kind of led me on down this rabbit hole, which many of us are going down these days, to learn about farming, learn about the soil, and got to a point where I really felt like, do I want to do something about this, be part of the change, which I felt that I did. I wanted to do something about it. So we took this farm on in October 23.
Wow. And this is a council house farm, not council house, a council farm.
Tenant Council tenancy.
Now that's quite rare in this day and age, isn't it?
They are.
Because you don't hear about it much.
They're really hard. So all the reading I did around it, everyone says, don't be disappointed, you never get your first farm. And there's stories of people going for multiple farms before they get anything.
Yes.
But we were blessed enough to be able to get our first appeal or application, and we got this farm.
And this is so good because people, I think, are losing heart at the moment. Unless you've got millions in the bank and you can afford to buy not only the land, but all the bits, the buildings, and then the farm equipment, and then the seed on top of that. You know, it's a real uphill start for ordinary people. How have you found that side of things?
We have found it and are finding it. It is a challenge. It is one of the hardest things. We've been really lucky in the sense that we've had Woodland Trust help us supply some of the apple trees that we're planting here today in this orchard, and they've been really good with some of the other broadleaf native trees, so that does help. But at the moment we're financing it personally because all the big agricultural banks didn't want to know. We're too small. We're 16 acres here, and they're even recently I've been trying to get some proper insurance for it, and they said, sorry, you're too horticultural, you're not farming. Which is ridiculous. Because we're growing copious amounts of food here.
Yes. Now, it's interesting because, I mean, we'll look at the trees and the varieties that you're planting in a second, but I know that you do the no-dig method.
We do.
And you've got a patch on the far side of this field. Tell us about that, because we've interviewed Charles Dowding in the past. Great man, big advocate for no-dig.
Certainly is, yeah. Yeah, so for us, we've got a chap called Jonathan who works for us, who you've probably met this morning, and it's a passion of his as well. If I'm honest, he knows more about it than I do. But because we're a regenerative farm, I understand the principles of not disturbing the soil, because as soon as you start to disturb the soil, you're kicking over weed seeds, things like that, but you're also disturbing all the soil structure that worms have taken ages to build, and also all the microbes and stuff, and then it releases carbon back into the atmosphere. So with the no-dig method, we are able to we're adding layers of compost onto cardboard initially to kind of blind out any weeds or volunteer crops that would have been here, and just growing on top of that, and just constantly feeding the soil, constantly feeding it from top down, rather than inverting and ploughing and turning it in.
And if you haven't got a plough, that must be a huge amount of effort that you don't have to worry about.
Well, there you go, We don't need a plough, we don't have a plough, we don't have a tractor.
Don't have a tractor?
We need a tractor, but we don't currently have one.
But you've got a lot of manpower, and these people are from the community.
Yep.
How important is that, to get the community involved in what you're doing?
Yeah, so for us, the whole ethos of our farm is about getting people connected back with the soil, connected back with where food comes from, but not only that, who is growing their food.
Yes.
Because so often you go to the supermarket, we're so disconnected to how food arrives there. You've got children who think that strawberries grow in Tesco's, they just appear, but of course they don't. There's somebody there growing that food.
Well, these are edible plums, green gauge, and there's apple, pear, quince, almond, etc. Plus some nuts as well. Hazelnut and walnut. And these trees are more than a year old, so it could be, hopefully you get some fruit off it within 5 years. And you have to keep looking after them even before they're fruiting. You've got to pay attention, stop the suckers coming off, make sure they stay watered. It gets very dry here in the summer.
Does it?
It's hard to believe, but
After all this rain.
Yeah, I mean you can go the whole of August with no rain, and that'll kill off trees. Nobody takes the tree guards away, and I've seen places where they've all died, and then the tree guards have just fallen over and they've been left. But these have got nice metal tree guards.
And how long would they be on for?
I think they're going to have to stay on for the duration, because otherwise the deer will nibble at the trunks.
You get a lot of deer here?
Loads, yeah. They're real pests now.
This is something you can be in control of and a part of. So being a part of a community is, I think, what is missing in society. I personally feel that. Where I live, I don't speak to many of my neighbours. It's a bit sad. So I try and do whatever I can when I can. I'm a tree grower myself. I love trees. I've got 2 apple trees in my garden, and I've got a 3-year-old peach tree that I've been growing. So I'm really excited. So this is the first one I've just planted, an apple tree. It's a Cox apple tree, and they're very sweet and gorgeous. So for me personally to be here, and I know a few faces here, but I don't know everyone. So it's really nice to be a part of this just outside of Bury, Great Barton. And I live in town. Nice for me to come out in the countryside and hear the birds and have relatively fresh air. Loads of things, actually.
So how accessible will as you grow and the blossom is there and the fruit starts to come out from the fruit trees, so that how accessible will you be to the local community so that they can make that connection?
Exactly. We're open to volunteers on an almost constant basis. That needs to be managed, but we're going to be having open days often. So we want to have adult groups in and also school groups to come in, bring them in to educate them about the way we're farming, what we're growing, why we're growing it.
Yeah.
And even the design, I said my background is in garden design, so even the actual design of this farm, the 11 acres that we're standing in today, it's all based around a central hub, and it spirals off from there. So
yes, I've seen your designs, and we were hoping to show the drone, but I couldn't get the drone working, just to show at least, even with the stakes up, you'd get an idea of what it looks like, and it's very beautifully put together.
Yeah, so everything is around that central hub, so we can bring people into the farm. As you stand in the middle, you can look across each segment and go, that's all the fruit trees, this is the soft fruit, these are the vegetables, and start to engage people with it. It's right there with you in the middle.
And the response so far from people, I mean, just talking around, they're very enthusiastic. Because people don't get that opportunity to get on a farm.
No.
They can do a bit of gardening and weeding, but the scale that you're doing this at is accessible for people.
It is, yeah. I was speaking to a chap earlier, I've not met him before, who's come to volunteer, and his grandparents had a cherry farm, and it got sold and developed years ago. And he said he's turned 70 this year, and he wanted to plant an orchard, but he hadn't got the space. So today was an opportunity for him to kind of fulfil that goal at a Jubilee Farm.
Fantastic. Well, we'd love to come back later on in the year
You should come here, yeah.
When do you think the first crops, because presumably all these crops, they come at different times, harvest at different times.
That's right, yep.
When will you think you'll be able to pick the first crop and then be able to celebrate?
Our hope is that within 3 years we might get some crops from some of the varieties here, but it's a mixed orchard, so everything's going to come in at different times. But 3 to 5 years realistically. Some of the other varieties, some of the nuts might be a bit longer.
And where will you be able to market these crops?
So our whole farm is built around direct to consumer. Again, it's that thing about engaging people with food and with us as the growers. So our plan is to have a farm shop over at our farmyard to get people coming over, see not just the produce that they can buy the produce, but they can actually come out and see where it's grown as well. Again, just building that connection.
We need more of this type of work, don't we, up and down the countryside?
It
More
would be good,
small
yes.
farms supplying local areas.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're on that step of are proving that it will work.
Yes.
Well, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I mean, I'm very fortunate to have a mentor in farming, a chap called William, who massive advocate for localised food systems, and he's helping us because he's so on board with the project that we're doing here. And part of his vision is to have, if there's about 120 council farms just in Suffolk.
Is there?
And if everybody was able just to give over 10, 20 acres in their local community, we could change the food system completely. We could have more Jubilee Farm models in every kind of community around Suffolk, and wider, of course.
How involved do you think the council will be in what you do? Do they give you stipulations and regulations that you have to abide by, other than the normal government things?
So far, actually, I have to say Suffolk Council have been really good. You always hear stories of good stories, bad stories, but to us, they have been amazing, and they're really on board. It kind of ticks boxes for them, I suppose, in terms of green initiatives, but they've helped us get all the barns and the buildings back into shape so they're functional, ready for what we want to do. And we have to have permission from them to plant orchards and do it, because it changes the landscape so much.
Yes.
Obviously, we would stand here and say today, for the better.
Yes.
But still, it's been heard that some councils will just say, no, you're not planting trees, or if you do, you're going to cut them down when you leave. But that's not been the case here with Suffolk Council. They've been really on board and supportive with us.
Oh, well, that's interesting. It'd be interesting to hear from anybody else who's either thinking of that or has approached the council farms in their area. It'd be fascinating to hear their stories as well, and how maybe that is a great route for many people to get into farming. Well, Mike, it's been wonderful to be watching it. I feel I ought to better go and put the camera down and actually do some work. Otherwise, people would just say, "Oh, you just do a bit of film and then bog off," you know. So I think
thank you for coming today.
That's what we'll do. But good luck.
Yes,
congratulations
thank you very much.
on the farm, and what a start!
Yeah.
What a real good start.
Yeah, it feels really positive today.
So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be back with more monologues and more interviews in due course. Hopefully more out and about interviews, because it's just so good to see what people are actually doing and see feel the energy that's coming. I think this is going to be an exciting year. Thanks again, Mike.
Thank you.
In the meantime, from Mike and I, take care, look after yourselves, and get outside and plant a tree. Till next time, bye-bye.